We met with consultants and people that have this very friendly hints like what you should do next. And I don't believe in a monoculture of thinking where people think that, it had worked with YouTube and, Flickr and everything, so, make it a big thing and, increase traffic on the site, and the next thing you do is you approach a venture capitalist because you're already established. And then you're going to sell it, and I'm not interested in that at all. We found extraordinary people, and the future must be in, I believe, that's just my private opinion, in quality and not just quantity. 9 million users, we'll never have that. I don't think so. We don't even need that. The point is, what can we do with 20,000, 25,000 people? Can we establish a culture on Shapeshifters where you get this recommendation in from Sydney about not just a hotel, but a really cool supplier, and you would say, wow, that's cool. I'm going to work with these people. At least I try to find out who they are, because it was recommended to me from Shapeshifters, and that is a label of quality.
To get started, Eric skipped first world hotspots like London, Paris, New York, and Tokyo. Instead, he hit the Southern Hemisphere, promoted ideas in places like Dar es Salaam, and only now is coming to North America.
We ended up in the most extraordinary places, in fashion studios, downtown Johannesburg, in startup communities in Auckland and Christchurch, New Zealand. We had presentations in the living room of some private family in Brazil. Beds were taken out, people came in, students came, 35 people in a tiny room squeezed together. And we did a Shapeshifters presentation, so everything looked very adventurous in the end. We thought it's good to start Shapeshifters with the unusual suspects that are not so much represented in the social software world. We thought, why not seed Shapeshifters in places first where we are sure, and it's not just an assumption, it's a fact, where there is enormous creativity, everywhere, enormous skills. But these people are nowhere represented, and I don't look at these places as, development markets. It's not a developing country for me, because in terms of creativity, you find sometimes cooler people in the streets of Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, than you would find in Vancouver or Toronto. So the point is, their work isn't staged anywhere, and a lot of these people are not so much into Web 2.0. So we thought, why not seed Shapeshifters in a place that is, or into places that are really not so much represented in the digital domain. And I think it was a good idea to start in Africa. If people like you co-create and begin to cooperate in a certain way, it will have impacts on places and names and cities that I don't even know of. First of all, people really appreciated it. And it allows us to get the idea across that we're not a new MySpace, we're not another YouTube. We're something different that has a very specific attitude behind it, and people understand it. So seeding Shapeshifters in these places is not, trying to be, a world-saving initiative like bringing high-end tools to rural places in Africa. It's not like that. It's much more about, making a connection work where a Maori artist community leader can easily connect with someone in New York. And that's not really happening often, because what happens very often is that Londoners connect with Toronto, and Toronto with Los Angeles, and that's the whole domain. But that's not the full picture. The world is much more diverse than that.
For all the talk about social media, of network sites and individuals, of the possibilities of second lives and the importance of first lives, Eric is marrying the online with the offline and is slowly piecing together a global network, one individual at a time.
The right word that we, for ourselves, use very often is it's a magic place for real diversity. We've been to very poor places where broadband is a no-go. We've been to places where electricity is luxury. So you talk to these people and say, wow, fantastic. Once we get, electricity back, we'll probably use it, but that's not a given. So that's true for some places, and we've talked to, we've been in places like, Wellington, capital of Lord of the Rings. Broadband isn't an issue there. You get different questions in Wellington and Auckland, maybe. So yeah, it's a weird, wild mixture of cultures and people.
So what happens when you develop a social networking initiative that doesn't leverage a huge user base for potential revenue? Innovate! Shapeshifters believes it's accessing an untapped global market that has meaningful information for the global economy.
I think we could really be something like, I know it's a big word, but I think the world needs something like a Bloomberg agency for a new economy. And I really think we could be such a firm where we're gathering not just, stock exchange data of every kind. I think we're creating a lot of important knowledge at the moment about firms that operate differently. And I think they're doing good with it.
In the end, Shapeshifters is part of a trend to focus social networks on niche markets. This is seen within specific industries, within companies, and among like-minded people. The software tools to accomplish are now low-cost commodities. As such, it's easy to get the software component off the ground. More difficult, of course, is attracting and penetrating the niche market. Shapeshifters is doing it one person at a time.
If we begin to communicate globally in a certain way, it could have an enormous impact on every one of us individually. And that is Shapeshifters.